Hello, everybody out there. My name's Dusk Inferno.
And I am KON.
Today, we're going to be talking about FNAF. Also known as Five Nights at Freddy's. We're going to be covering both the first and second games, and this will be entirely spoiler-tastic. So if you've not played the games, or if you do not...
haven't seen anything of the games, but which by now would be surprising if you haven't seen anything, because they've both been out for a while. I mean, the third one already has a trailer.
Yeah, or if you just don't want to, or if you just want to make sure that you remain spoiler-free, then...
Bail now!
Yeah, leave immediately.
Also, we're going to try to keep this basically as headcanon free as possible, because there are so many videos out there right now that have so much headcanon and theorizing that we are not going to throw our heads into that ring, because there's enough of it out there. What we are going
Question.
Yes.
Why are we throwing our heads and not hats? Because
heads are better. What we are going to do instead is talk about the game as a whole. What merits does it have? Can it stand alone? Is it a good game? I mean, this is something that Dusk and I have been going back and forth about constantly, because I love everything Five Nights at Freddy's. I can't get enough of those games. And I even love all the spin-offs. Like, I have watched so many YouTube playthroughs of spin-offs. I've gone to look for spin-offs myself. I love the games to death. I love the lore. I love the mechanics. I love everything about it.
Conversely, I'm sick to death of it.
Care to elaborate?
Well, it's not sick to death's a bit harsh. I think that the first one was minimalist at best. It has... it has no replayability, but that doesn't matter quite as much as the first playthrough. And for the first playthrough, it's okay. Completely devoid of story. And
I would like to put a pin in that and come back to that, because I disagree, but continue.
Okay, well, not completely devoid of story. It has story, but in my opinion, the story needs to work with one game at a time. For example, not for example, but each story should be modular. They should work with one another, but you shouldn't need both of them for everything to make sense. You can have mysteries, and you can have cliffhangers and not everything be explained, but a good amount of it needs to be understood in order for me to enjoy the game. I am a complete lore nerd. I love the story of games. I play games for the story.
You and me both. High five.
Oh God. We clipped the mic so hard there.
Hey, at least they will hear our awesome high five.
There are very few games that I will not play for the story, Terra Rising being one of them. I've been playing tons of Terra lately. But the combat saves that game so much. But we're not here to talk about Terra. We're here to talk about FNAF. So that's my basic stance on it, is that the second one is actually a pretty decent game. It's got a decent amount of story. In my opinion, it's still too subtle, but it's better than the first game, where it's like, it felt like bare bones until I actually looked up videos where people went insanely in depth. We're talking game theorists and other guys that kind of go off the deep end at some points.
In fact, we watched both of the game theorist videos before coming to do this recording, just so we can get some ideas of what we wanted to talk about. And if you haven't seen them yet, go watch them. They're awesome.
Yes, both the Game Theorist videos are good. I highly disagree with some of his points, and entirely agree with others, and his intros are so goddamn long.
But overall, we like them.
So, bringing up our first bullet point of, shall we go with my stuff or yours first?
Why don't we do your stuff first?
All right. So,
or we'll go back and forth. Do one first.
Yeah. So, one of the things that actually we just kind of covered is why narrative needs to follow the playing of the game. And what I mean by this is the narrative of the first game is lackluster, and that's being generous. There's just not much to go on. So I felt like I didn't even care about the story because I had no reason to care, because there was nothing to care about.
Now, I do agree that they didn't give you much. When I was introduced to Five Nights at Freddy's, I was playing it in a dorm room with some buddies of mine, and I was on the top bunk of a bunk bed, so being able to read the teeny tiny posters that have the lore on it was difficult to impossible.
And
let alone you're trying to switch through cameras to not die, so you can't pause to read them.
That's the other thing that's the thing that I just thought of. The lore is hidden in posters and other things on the walls, which is great in games that are RPGs or FPSs where you can stop and pause a moment, and actually in games like that have lulls where you can pause and look at the amazing set pieces and the little tiny details. But in a game like FNAF, there is no pause that allows you to do that. You pause in that game for more than 4 seconds, you're dead.
Yeah.
So the mechanics are at odds with the method of the storytelling. Not the storytelling itself, just the method of it.
And I do agree with you on that point. We do get a little bit of history from Phone Guy, but it's bare bones at best. And I do agree that the first game's story isn't so much lackluster, because it's a very interesting story when you look it up. The problem is you have to look it up. And I think that's attributed to the fact that he had to rush that one out. I don't remember the reason why, and I wish I had looked it up, but I remember hearing that he had to rush out the first game, and he wasn't able to put things into the game that he wanted, such as other animatronics and a different style of map for the camera setup. He said he wanted it to be slightly different. For more information on that, go find Top 10 Memes. He has great videos on both Five Nights at Freddy's videos, all sorts of background stuff that you never would have noticed otherwise. It's awesome. Go find them. Watch them.
I can also put in information, because obviously we don't have the webcam up right now.
Yeah.
This was kind of a thrown together kind of thing. We might make a weekly or like bi-weekly show out of this, just talking about games in general. In this case, we're talking about FNAF, but we didn't really have any time to go and grab photography, but video editing, or not video. I cannot talk tonight.
We didn't have time to do other stuff because this would be neat if we did it. So we were like, yes, do the things.
Exactly. So we didn't really have time to prepare. We did a little prep beforehand, but
like we watched the videos, but that was about it.
Yeah, and we wrote up some bullet points. But my point is, we're not having video this week, and I don't know if we're going to have video in the future. So on this, if I do my work properly, on the screen should be information that we're talking about and things like that.
I'll probably make some slides that show the YouTubers we're talking about, some points that they made, because I know I'm going to be drawing a lot of information from stuff that I learned from Top 10 Memes and my own research.
I have done exactly 0 of my own research. I'm only going off of Top 10 Memes and and what's the other Faces guy? Wow.
Game Theorist.
Thank you. I'm only going off of those 2 videos because, like I said before, I didn't really care enough to do my own research, and
whereas I hunger for everything Five Nights.
Exactly. I have some ideas that I think would be really interesting for the 3rd game, which I'll probably end up talking about at the end of the video, maybe, depending upon if we have enough time. I'm hoping to stick to about a 30-minute form factor.
Yeah.
However, considering we're currently looking at about 8.5 minutes now.
We got to keep moving. Keep moving. But yeah, I do agree that the first one was a bit lacking because, and I do feel that it was because he had to rush it out. If I recall, because of budget constraints. Now the second one, he didn't have that many problems because the first one took off like a rocket, and he got so many monies.
That he did, and the second one definitely is better in terms of story content. There's a lot more backstory in there, and there's a lot more interesting information in there as well. Yeah. And the death mini games are a interesting way of conveying narrative. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say they're the best method of it because they're so subtle. And do you actually? And if you never die, which is highly doubtful, but if you don't die that often, you're not going to necessarily see all of them.
Okay.
Which could mean that you miss... That basically, for playing well, you miss parts of the game. Which is kind of a strange mechanic.
And that is something I had never thought about, because I always considered the death minigames a very good idea, because with the mechanics in the game itself, it's very difficult to try to fit in lore pieces and have it make sense. The death minigames are a way for it to kind of play to the style of the game. Your character doesn't have to move around. He doesn't find, the stereotypical, pieces of paper just lying around. Like, a good example of that is Amnesia. Amnesia did that very well because you're wandering a castle looking for remnants of why you were there.
And also the pacing of Amnesia is much slower than FNAF. Much slower.
Right.
Amnesia is a 30 to 40 hour game, whereas FNAF is maybe a couple of hours.
Unless you're really bad at it and you die a lot.
True, in which case you're going to see all the nice story elements that they put in there.
But you're right. Having them be death minigames is unfortunate because you're totally right. If you play well and you die very seldomly, you don't get all the story.
Because there are some portions of the death minigames that are only a % chance of showing up.
Right.
For example, there's one where the purple dude will chase you down in one of the later death mini games in one of the later nights, but that's only a very low %. So only if you die a lot does that actually happen.
Or you get very, very, very lucky.
But honestly, relying on luck to tell the story of your game is probably not one of the best design choices.
Although I do like how when you complete levels, you get cutscenes that tell a very, very cryptic story.
I actually don't remember that.
Okay. Spoiler-tastic. When you complete a level in FNAF 2, you are treated to a cutscene where you see outside. You're looking out from a mask, and if I remember correctly, it's the Freddy mask.
Okay.
And you move your head, and you can hear the gears in your head moving as an animatronic, and you can see that you're in the original dining room from FNAF 1. And different things can be seen and heard during these cutscenes. Like the first one, you just look around, you see that there's Bonnie and Chica to your side, and you don't see much else. You see the dining room. In another one, you turn and you hear child's laughter. I think it is the exact recording used for Freddy's laugh. Because if you speed up Freddy's laugh, you can hear that it's a child's laughter. And I think it is that same recording. And then in another one, you turn and Bonnie and Chica are looking at you. And in another one, the puppet is staring you in the face. And when you turn to look away, the puppet follows you.
Okay.
So it's definitely trying to say something, and that brings me to one of my points that I wanted to make, because this is something that I feel very strongly about. The creator of these games, Scott Cawthon, is a genius when it comes to making his backstory. At least I think so. He, although genius may be a bit too strong a word, he definitely knows what he's doing, because every element that I've witnessed in these games, save for one that I'm going to come back to, has helped to further the story at least a little bit. The death minigames help further the story. Those little cutscenes help further the story. The little tidbits Phone Guy gives you helps further the story. Even how the animatronics can act can help further the story. I honestly think that nothing, save this one element that I'm going to get back to, is put in there by mistake or frivolously. Right down to the paycheck at the end. He clearly did his research, because in FNAF 2, it says that it's 1987, and your wages at the end match up with minimum wages for 1987.
And as a side note, it also matches up in the first game as well.
That it does. Assuming that it's the mid-90s, because they don't give you an exact date, but assuming it's the mid-90s, it adds up.
Yeah.
Now, the one element I'm going to mention, and this was something they mentioned on Top 10 Memes, the date on your check at the end of FNAF 2 is in November. The first thing Phone Guy says to you is, "Welcome to your new summer job." Now, last time I checked, if this game is taking place in the U.S., November is not in the summer. So my guess is, now this is the one piece of headcanon that will get in here. I think that was just a goof, or
That's not a headcanon. That's just I think that was a goof.
Or he was using summer job as a loose term to mean temp job.
Maybe.
Because I know I tend to use summer job as just a loose term to mean temp job, regardless of season.
Damn, this chair is squeaky.
Yeah. But I could be a complete weirdo. Please let me know in the comments. But
yes, please, in the comments, describe how weird we are, because we definitely want to hear all about that.
No, I mean, like, tell me if I'm the only one who uses summer job as a means to describe a temp job.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's fine.
But yeah, so either it was just one little goof, or he's trying to use that as a means to describe a temp job. But other than that, I don't think that anything in those games are put in there by mistake. Everything is meticulously thought out because he had a lot more time and a lot more budget for the second one. And I honestly think, headcanon, that he's going to do the same thing for the third one because he took so long for it to come out. The trailer, because I was watching this, was supposed to come out around Christmas or sometime thereafter. But it didn't come out until a couple weeks ago.
The thing is, the trailer's kind of bare bones as it is.
And I think that's because he just had to rush it out again because people wanted it. People were saying, where's the trailer? Where's the trailer?
I mean, I guess there's something to be said for not letting the hype die, but there's also something to be said for actually putting out good content.
That's also true.
And making a trailer that does more than just hype and actually can show what the game's going to be like.
That's true, because the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 trailer showed at least one of the new mechanics. There are no doors.
Exactly. One of the big reveals in that trailer was and no doors.
I know. I freaked out when I saw it. It's like,
and I was,
I need my doors.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, "Huh, that could actually be a really interesting mechanic. What are they going to do with that?" So that actually got me hyped for that. For that portion. With this, you see Golden Freddy
Golden
and
Bonnie.
Oh yeah, that was Golden Bonnie, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Bonnie ears. Also, if you haven't seen the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 trailer, go watch it. It's awesome.
There'll probably be a link in the description if I remember to watch. If I remember to edit it.
I'll remind you.
If I remember to put that on as I'm editing.
I'll remind you. But yeah, I think what he was trying. If I'm right, headcanon again. I know I promised minimal headcanon, but bear with me. If I'm right, the big part of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that he wanted to emphasize was the change in mechanic. I think what he wants to stress with this one is the change in not only setting, but characters. We've never been privy to Golden Bonnie before, and a lot of the preemptive stills that he released said, "You forgot about me." So my guess is he wants to hype Golden Bonnie, because that was the center of that trailer.
True.
Was Golden Bonnie.
Was the suit that did the slow pan into, was that golden or a different color?
Golden.
Really? Mm-hmm. I don't remember that. I thought it was the normal Bonnie color.
No, watch it again. It's Golden Bonnie.
All right, I'll have to do that.
Mm-hmm. But where was I going with that?
The specifically hyping up the change of characters.
Yes. And where was I going with that? I have whatever that thought was, it died very happy on some warm island somewhere.
All right, if we're gonna move on, considering we're nearing the 16-minute mark.
Yeah, let's move on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's the 19-minute mark.
Oh God, we have been talking for a while.
I'm like on the other side of the room, so the numbers are like the size of like.
Right. Every element put there on a purpose. Because he's taken so long because he took so long to release the second game, and he's taking a very long time with the third game, I think he's trying to do everything right. Make sure nothing is put there by mistake. Everything has a purpose to tell parts of the story.
Unless he releases it half-assed, it's gonna be god awful, which I hope it isn't.
if history has taught us anything, he won't, because even though he had to quickly rush out FNAF 1, it was still a decent game. It got the hype and all the attention enough for a sequel to be released. So
I don't know about a decent game. I'd say it's passable.
I would say he did something right. He had to have done something right in order for there to be enough to warrant a sequel, in my opinion.
Sorry, I just had to reawake the computer. It's turned off like twice now. The screens have turned off twice on us now. Yeah, I know. We're running out of time. Screw it.
Right.
We're probably not going to make a 30-minute episode on this first one just because there's so much to talk to
We're
talk about.
probably gonna. We might break it up. We'll see how long it ends up being. We may break it up.
I'd prefer not to, but anyway, I think I should probably skip my second point because if we're not going to be going over headcanon, then we should probably skip that.
Yeah, the second point he was going to make was where did the puppet go if it was the first murder? That is pure headcanon territory.
Yeah, that is like literally all that headcanon.
All right. Your third point is fantastic.
So my third point, which you've gone over a little bit, actually quite a bit, is the game too subtle? And in my opinion, it is. The reason why is because the amount, like if you just play Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and then FNAF 2, the FNAF 2 is definitely a superior game in mechanics, and it is a superior game in storytelling on the surface because it gives you more information, and not just the fact that it gives you more information, you can actually do more with the information. You can start to form conclusions from the second game.
Right.
And while the second one's good, the first one was way too subtle, and the second one's still too subtle in my opinion. Because while it can help you start to make conclusions, it's there's just still not much to go on. And my hope is that in the third game things will start to get wrapped up. If that's the final one of the series, I don't know. I certainly hope it will be, because I could see a trilogy being much easier to try and make than like a 4G or whatever a 4 is.
I wouldn't even know.
So
a quadrigy?
Something.
I don't know.
So yeah, I'm hoping that it's a trilogy, and the third one will actually start to wrap things up and start to make things fall into place. But overarching plots are good, but there still needs to be something interesting along the way, story-wise, in each one. FNAF 1 was bare bones at best. FNAF 2 had good stuff in it, but it's still pretty bare bones. And it only really worked well with Five Nights at Freddy's 1, which leads me to my other point in this, is that game stories, if you look at any other game series out there... Mass Effect. Every game, barring the third one, is a good story on its own.
If you ignore the ending
ending of the third game, they're good. Each one's good story on its own. You can play each one. You might be a little confused here and there, like, what the hell is this character and why do I care? But other than that, you would still be able to enjoy and play every game out of order and not really care, because they're still good games by themselves, but in a trilogy they're amazing.
Yeah.
Barring the third one.
Yeah, we won't get into that little slice of pie.
But yeah, I think that's my point, is that they're together, they start to come together to make a story. And while that's interesting, there still needs to be something in each game.
Okay.
And KOM with the counterpoints.
You definitely make some excellent points. And I do agree that the story of the first game, I wouldn't say it's bare bones, because the story is there. The problem is it detracts from the gameplay to try to find it, because it is on posters that you have to pause to look at and then are difficult to read, and then Bonnie comes and chews your bum while you're trying to look at it.
That is very true.
And I don't like it when Bonnie chews my bum. So I do agree that the story in the first one could have been handled better. And I also agree that the second game is miles better than the first. What I disagree with is that it's too subtle. I honestly think that these games have the perfect amount of subtlety. It doesn't hit you over the head with answers. It keeps subtle what it wants to keep subtle, like who the killer is. But it also gives you some answers to
real quick,
other questions.
That's not subtle. That's gone. You have no way to conclude who the killer might be, and unless
All you know is it's some guy who worked the morning shift. That's all you know.
Yeah, that's literally all you know, and so that's not subtle. That's gone.
Okay, yeah. Unless it's not important. All you need if all he wants you to know is it was somebody who worked the morning shift, used a golden Freddy suit to lure the kids backstage and then kill them, that's all you really need to know. The exact name that it was like Joe M something. I'm bad at thinking of last names, but if it was just some Joe Schmo,
Joe Miller.
then it's not important. And he's putting more time and effort into what he wants his players to get out of it.
I can kind of see that point, but I don't know. I guess I'm just a sucker for a good story, and this is lacking it for me because there's just so little to go on, and headcanons are great. They're fantastic. They allow you to sort of develop your own ideas of what's going on in the world, but when a headcanon is required to explain more than half of the game, then we start walking into a territory that gets real dicey of actually, of actually being able to understand the game.
But that's just it. I honestly don't think he's left that much to headcanon. I think what a lot of people have been classifying as headcanon is what he's been wanting people to piece together. Like, he's left little bits of puzzle pieces here and there, and he's waiting for people to fit them together.
But that's the thing, though. This isn't marketed as an ARG, an alternate reality game, for those who don't know. It's marketed as a game. So as a game, you shouldn't have to piecemeal the story together. It should be able to be not beating you over the face with it, but it should be clear enough on its own that with a little bit of thought you can think through it and like, kind of sit back for a moment and kind of think through the events of the game.
Okay.
Like, the events of the game should tell you the story, not the small bits of text that are hidden on a wall.
Yeah, okay. I can definitely understand that. So, what I think I'm trying to get at is, I do agree that he's left a lot to the imagination. What specific parts he's left to the imagination, I think, is what we disagree on. And without going too much into headcanon territory again, I think that you can fit all the death minigames together to make the story of Five Nights at Freddy's and my brain is dead. It will come back to me any moment.
It's also like midnight right now.
Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. The perfect time to be doing a debate.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, the end level cutscenes also help to tell the story. They're left very subtle, which is one thing that I like. I am wondering though if it's too subtle and it's like he's given us puzzle pieces but also chopped off a couple pieces, so you have to figure out which pieces actually go with which.
Yeah, it's kind of like, here's this wonderful 5,000-piece puzzle, but we also nobbled off the corners on, 18 of them. Have fun figuring that out.
And I think also the bottom line is, I will always love Five Nights at Freddy's. I love speculating about what the game could possibly mean and what he might be trying to get out of it. And I am anxiously awaiting FNAF 3. I cannot wait to see what he's put in it. I can't wait to see if there are new mechanics, new animatronics, which
I hope there are new mechanics.
I would hope so. It looks like there are going to be new animatronics, and I can't wait to see what sort of lore we get.
That's true.
I hope it feels a lot of a lot of pieces.
If FNAF 3 fills in a lot of details, I'll be much happier than I am now, but I'll still call to question the idea of making a trilogy where you basically have to buy the story. Like, if you want to experience it yourself, then you have to buy all 3 games. Now, admittedly, they are cheap, but you still have to buy all 3 games to actually know what's going on, and I kind of have problems with that.
I'm not sure if I agree that you have to buy the games to know what's going on, because there are so many YouTubers out there who have already delivered the gameplay and the side narrative, just piecing it apart and giving you the basically post-it note version of what's going on in the video game, that I don't think you have to buy it to know what's going on. You definitely have to buy it to experience it for yourself.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Is if you want to experience it for yourself, rather than each game delivering its own narrative coupled with an overarching theme like Mass Effect.
Okay.
It's the entire it's one overarching theme, and each game is a segment of that theme. It'd be like if Mass Effect was one game. Except, no, that analogy really doesn't work.
Yeah.
Imagine for a moment. No, that really doesn't work either. Hopefully, I think you guys are getting what I mean. Where it's basically one story that's been chopped into 3, possibly more pieces.
Okay, I think I get what you're saying. Where Mass Effect had 3 games that could stand on their own and had each individual story that all fit together. These 3 games are trying to tell one story.
Yes.
Okay.
With nothing by themselves.
Okay. That
which I have issues with.
That I'm not sure I agree with, because I think the second one definitely has a story, not completely its own, but its own enough for it to stand alone. Like, if you haven't played the first 5 Nights at Freddy's, you can play the second one and maybe not completely understand what's going on. You won't get all of the references, but
what references in there that you wouldn't get?
The Bite of 87, for example.
You don't get that in the first game, though. Like, they just say the Bite of 87.
Yes, but then the second game takes place in 1987, and which means we get the exact date for the Bite of 87, because the pizzeria is closing the next day. And the bite hasn't happened yet, or at least as far as we know, nobody has mentioned it.
Well, yeah, but that's another case of you have to sit back and like really think. All right, they said it happened in 87, and then you have to notice that the thing was closing, and then you have to put it together, and it's
they tell you that it's closing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they tell you that it's closing, and then it gives you the date on your final paycheck.
Yeah.
So it gives you the date of the Bite of 87. It still doesn't tell you who did it, and there are many fan theories that you can go and explore the wonders of the internet to go find. But yeah, it gives you the date of the Bite of 87, and that's a reference that you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't play the first game.
Is that really that important, though?
It depends on how deep you want to go into the game.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, is unless you're actually caring about the lore,
which I do.
Every game is basically a standalone. And well, standalone in terms of mechanics, because there's no story in them.
Yeah.
Or there is a story, but it requires the previous games to understand.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's I think kind of seeing my issue with it.
Yeah, I can understand why you take issue with that.
I mean, it's not a big issue, but I do have to highly disagree with that as a design decision.
Yeah. Although at the same time, we do have to keep in mind that this is one guy putting out all these games. And he's probably working his little brains out just to try to make all these people happy.
Don't get me wrong. I don't hold them to the same... The thing with indie games is that they are smaller in scope than AAA, simply because it's a battle of attrition for developing content.
That's very true.
The more content you have, the more you have to playtest, the more you have to develop for it. The more you add, like, for every minute of gameplay, it's like an hour of development.
Yeah.
So I can understand keeping games small, and that's why you keep them small in scope.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't fault him for having like the mechanics being a little lacking in some areas, or other small things like that. But then what you need to deliver on is a good story. So the basic idea is whatever you're lacking, you need to make up for it in other areas.
Okay.
Take for example indie games with minimalist graphics.
Okay.
For example, Terraria.
Oh my god, I love Terraria.
Terraria is so much fun because the combat is amazing. The feeling of progression is fantastic as well, and the music. Oh my god, the music. Relogic, whoever they got to do the music, I don't remember if it was Relogic themselves did it or not. It's amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. And so every other area of the game made up for the fact that the graphics were lackluster. If the graphics were lackluster and the mechanics were bad and the music was okay, would anyone be playing it? No,
Probably not,
of course
no.
not. Or heck, even if the graphics were good, and and everything else was kind of lackluster, they probably still wouldn't be played as much. It's every element for every part that every other element has lacking, other elements need to make up for it.
Okay. I definitely can see that point. And I think what Scott Cawthon was trying to do...
Who's the developer of the game, by the way?
I think I mentioned that earlier. But yeah, the developer of FNAF Trilogy or Beyond is Scott Cawthon. And I love his work. And what I think he was trying to do with FNAF 2 was he knew that his method of delivering the story in the first was difficult to get. Not get as in understand, but get as in I need to has. Because, like I said, Bonnie will come chew on your bum while you're trying to read the poster.
Yeah.
He did say, and he did confirm some things in tweets. Like, he did confirm that the place is haunted. So he has confirmed some things for us. But I think what he was trying to do with the second one was make up for the lack of story in the first, but not have it be too jarring. Like, if he tried to fit in different bits of lore while you were playing the game, it would have been just as jarring as it was in the first one, where you were trying to stop, ignore your feelings of I'm going to be murdered at any moment by a crazy robot, and read a poster on the wall that you can barely read because your screen is tiny.
What's the name of it? Okay, I want to get this reference, but it's drugs.
Oh, Papers, Please.
Papers, Please. Do what Papers, Please does. Have newspapers that you get at the start of your shift that inform you about what's going on.
Okay, that's interesting. Although, I think the reason he didn't go with that was because all the lore that you're getting happened in the past, and it would be something that the restaurant would want to keep quiet. Like, and especially since, if I understand the death minigames correctly, a lot of them have to deal with how the place is haunted.
True, which
likely wouldn't end up in the papers unless it was a tabloid.
True.
And not only that, but they wouldn't keep tabloids about the restaurant being haunted at the restaurant.
That is true.
So I can understand why he didn't go that route.
I guess maybe not that specific route then, but do something subtle. Me talking about being more subtle, wow. But do something that isn't jarring, like you were saying. Like a daily note, maybe from a bit like the phone calls, but maybe something a bit different. I don't know.
Again, how do you set it up so that's in the past?
That's the problem.
I guess maybe the only thing I could think of is if you are working at in a security office and you have security cameras. Yeah, I guess this could have worked. If you found a new piece of security cam footage daily, and that piece of security cam footage told another piece of the story.
Do either that or notes from previous security guards.
That would be cool. That would have been really cool. Like, other security guards noting, like, animatronic X did something weird today, or I thought I heard a voice coming from one of the animatronics, or I thought it looked at me funny. That would be really cool. Instead of having death mini games, which require you to die in the game to see, have security, have notes from previous security officers. That would be cool.
You basically read a couple of them. Read a couple of them at the start of your shift every day.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. All right. Was there anything else off of our list that we wanted to cover? Because, oh dear sweet Jesus, has turned into a monolith of a video.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, what, 40 minutes?
Yeah, 40 minutes.
God damn.
Well, I think I've said all I can say on the topic. If I think of anything else, we may do an addendum later, but...
Maybe.
I think that's all I can say on this topic for now.
It'd have to be a lot. Look, check out the if you're noticing this a while later, check the description or watch for text on annotations on the screen for basically either things that we've decided to correct or more information that we're adding. I don't think we're gonna do another video unless maybe like when the third game comes out, or unless we have like a lot to talk about, like in this video where we had 40 freaking minutes of content to talk about.
And I do like doing this. I think we should make this a thing. We just find a game that everybody's talking about or that is very popular and just talk about what makes it good and or bad.
Or even games that are coming up, but I think this should be a discussion that we should have. Not on mic taking up valuable viewer time. So.
All right.
I do believe that is everything. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Dusk Inferno.
And I'm KON.
And hopefully we'll see you in another video.
So long for now.
Oh, yeah, we're back.
Okay.
So, as it turns out...
I forgot to mention something that I remembered immediately after we turned off the recording equipment.
Are you hearing that? Oh, wait, yeah, you're not...
I'm not wearing a headset.
You're not wearing the headset right now. Oh, God. I don't know what's going on.
What?
So, for some reason, I'm hearing, like, small snippets of our previous discussion. I don't know if they're being recorded. I sincerely hope they're not. If they are and you guys are hearing them, I apologize. Wait 1 second.
Is it just...
No.
What?
It's what I'm saying right now. Okay, that's weird. Let's do this quickly before it confuses the hell out of me.
Okay.
KON, go ahead.
So basically, right after we turned off the equipment, I remembered something from Five Nights 1, which is another thing that you wouldn't have known about unless you dissected, and I enunciated that weirdly, if you dissected the video and audio. The last phone message you hear is not from Phone Guy, because it sounds like he got myrtleated. It's a weird, garbled up, almost demonic sounding voice that you assume to be Freddy. But if you take that audio, slow it down a little bit, and reverse it, it sounds like a snippet from a book which name is escaping me. I think it's like Memoirs of a Yogi or something like that. I'll put it in the annotations. But basically the snippet is talking about how it could be that animals, plants, and even metals share a similar life force and life memory. Now, the fact that Scott included that in the game is a very interesting point, and I wish I had remembered it during our main conversation.
Hey, we're recording it now, so I think that's all that matters.
Rebuttal.
Honestly, I got nothing. There's not really much to rebuttal on that because it's something that's in the game. I can't really, rebuttal anything that is clearly canon to the story, so I'm okay with that. That's actually good lore information in the first game, which is actually really nice to see. Now, again, however, it's covered up by obfuscation of, unless someone actually takes the time to freaking slow the thing down, to record it, slow the thing, and in post-processing, slow the thing down and reverse it, they're never gonna find that.
Right, which you can do if you go watch Top 10 Memes. Again, it's awesome. Go watch it.
I like how we're promoting a channel that has, like, way more people watching it than we do right now. It's alright, though. Oh, God, that red and Audacity. Alright.
Sorry.
We'll get there eventually, so...
But yeah, I wish I had remembered that before, but I think that's a very important thing to note that was added, because that adds further credence to the fanon theory that the kids were stuffed in the suits and that their spirits bonded to it. He's nodding at me, so I'm taking that as a good sign.
I was yawning, sorry. Yes, it is like 12:15 right now, like 12:30. 12:30. We should stop talking.
Okay.
We've been talking about this. Like the last time we talked about this, we talked for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, and then we didn't stop.
So, yeah.
All right, so I just wanted to add that in one more time. I am KON.
I'm Duskin Frodo.
And we will see you later on. Thank you so much for bearing with us through this pillar of a movie.
Yes.
Movie. Wow.
Recording.
Video. I'm going to sleep now.
Thank you guys for watching.